Urschel Air Base, Germany. German Air Force technicians prepare one of NATO's most powerful weapons, the Taurus Kinetic Energy Penetrator Destroyer. 350, a cruise missile designed for a specific mission, to destroy targets that other missiles can't. Its secret weapon, a half-ton warhead. First, an explosive charge pierces reinforced concrete bunkers. Then, a 2-meter steel penetrator literally dives through the floors, exploding only when it reaches the heart of the underground facility. This missile can fly 500 kilometers, skim the ground, is invisible to radar, and can hit a specific floor of a building with surgical precision. The full flight plan is loaded into the missile while it's still on the ground. Speed, altitude, route, target, it's all programmed. Once in the air, the Tornado fighter releases the Taurus hundreds of kilometers from the target, and then the missile takes over. Completely autonomous, 4 navigation systems ensure that it always finds the target. The Taurus was developed for Germany and Spain, but in November 2025, a third country placed an order that completely changed the game in Europe. Sweden, a country that was neutral for 200 years, a country that never threatened anyone, a country that, until 2024, wasn't even a member of NATO. And here's the detail that's keeping Vladimir Putin up at night. The Taurus, with its 500-kilometer range, is just the beginning of what Sweden is planning, because what Sweden really wants is something even more powerful. And that changes everything. To understand why this Swedish decision frightens the Kremlin so much, you need to understand what happened on November 25th, 2025. On that day, the chief of the Swedish Defense Staff, General Carl Johan Edström, delivered a report to the government, a report that marks the end of an era. The document is straightforward. Sweden needs to buy long-range cruise missiles, not 500-kilometer missiles like the Taurus. Sweden wants missiles that can fly up to 2,000 kilometers. And the general made the reason clear. The Russian military threat will increase in the next 2 to 5 years. Consider that for a moment. The distance between Stockholm, the Swedish capital, and Moscow, the Russian capital, is 1,230 kilometers. A 2,000-kilometer missile launched from Sweden not only reaches Moscow, it reaches Moscow with plenty of room to spare. But wait, wasn't Sweden a neutral country? The one that stayed out of both world wars? What the hell happened? The answer is Putin. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Sweden realized something. Neutrality doesn't protect anyone anymore. In the modern world, geography is not a shield. And in March 2024, after 200 years of being neutral, Sweden joined NATO.
The determination of the leadership, the extraordinary diplomacy she exercised, making sure every question was answered, every challenge was met, every obstacle was overcome.
But joining NATO was just the first step. The second step is what we're seeing now. Sweden doesn't just want to be part of the alliance. It wants to have teeth. Teeth that can bite into the heart of Russia. And Putin? Well, he must have been quite worried about that. The reason? He was the one who caused all of this. All that talk about expanding NATO, being a threat to Russia, it didn't work. Putin got exactly the opposite of what he wanted. Finland, which has 1,340 kilometers of border with Russia, joined NATO. Sweden abandoned 200 years of neutrality. And now Moscow is within reach of European missiles. The Swedish Defense Minister, Paul Johnson, explained this very clearly. The experience of the war in Ukraine shows that Russia is aggressively developing its long-range capabilities. Cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, long-range drones. Sweden needs to build a stronger deterrence against this threat. But there's an important detail here. Sweden clearly stated when it will use these missiles, only if NATO Article 5 is triggered. Article 5 is simple. An attack on one NATO member is considered an attack on all members. Everyone is obligated to help. That limitation is smart. First, because it puts the Swedish missiles under a defensive flag. Under international law, that's legitimate collective defense, not aggression. Second, because it protects Sweden itself. Since Sweden is now a member of NATO, if Russia attacks Swedish territory, that automatically triggers Article 5. Putin can't attack Sweden and use that clause as an excuse to avoid retaliation. It's basically a clear message to Moscow. If you attack us, Moscow will feel the impact of our missiles. I know that many of you at this point are asking yourselves, but after all, what missiles are these? Look, General Edström's report doesn't specify. It only says that Sweden needs cruise missile systems with a range of up to 2,000 kilometers. But some candidates are already appearing. The Taurus we saw at the beginning is one of them. Sweden has already placed an order for Taurus missiles to integrate into its fleet of Gripen fighters. But the Taurus has a problem. Its 500 kilometers of range don't even come close to the 2,000 that Sweden wants. Even so, the Taurus cannot be ignored. It has unique capabilities. Its Mephisto warhead, which we mentioned at the beginning of the video, doesn't just pierce bunkers. It has void sensors. The missile literally detects when it is inside a hollow space, like a bunker or tunnel, before detonating. This ensures that the explosion happens in the right place, maximizing the damage. And there's more. The Taurus flies low, following the terrain. It uses 4 different navigation systems: global positioning system, inertial navigation, terrain recognition, and an infrared sensor for the final attack. Even if one system fails, the others ensure that the missile finds its target. And do you want to know how Sweden is going to cover the gap between 500 kilometers and 2,000 kilometers? Well, a temporary solution has already been revealed: deploying the Taurus in allied countries closer to Russia. Think about Finland. The distance from the country's capital, Helsinki, to important Russian military facilities in the northwest is much shorter than from Stockholm. A Taurus launched from eastern Finland can hit strategic targets that would be out of range if launched from Sweden. Moscow would still be out of range because Helsinki is 890 kilometers from the Russian capital. But many other critical military targets would be vulnerable. The truth is that Sweden is very focused on achieving this full-range capability. And the reason for this is one: Ukraine. The war in Ukraine has taught brutal lessons about modern warfare. And one of the biggest lessons is this: range matters. A lot. For years, Ukraine begged for long-range weapons. Missiles that could hit Russian bases deep inside enemy territory. Ammunition depots, airfields, command centers. The logic is simple. If you can strike Russia deep inside, you force the enemy to pull back their logistics, their planes, their command systems. That makes everything more complicated for them. And when Ukraine finally got some of those weapons, the results were impressive. But Ukraine didn't just wait for Western help. They started developing their own solutions. Let me tell you 2 impressive stories that changed the way Sweden thinks about war. The first occurred recently in November 2025. Ukrainian Special Operations Forces used a drone called FP-1 to shoot down a Russian Mi-8 helicopter in mid-flight. The helicopter was near Kutenikovo, in the Rostov region. In other words, it was 190 kilometers behind the front lines. Now, hold on a second. What do you mean? A drone taking down a helicopter in the air, deep in enemy territory? That had never happened before in history. The FP-1 is fascinating. It's made of plywood. That's right, wood. That keeps the cost low, about $55,000 per unit, and reduces the radar signature. It has a range of 1,600 kilometers and can carry between 60 and 120 kilograms of explosives. And it has proven that long-range systems can do more than just hit static targets. They can dominate enemy airspace, well, within their own territory. For Sweden, the lesson is clear. 2,000-kilometer missiles wouldn't just be used to hit buildings in Moscow. They could be used to suppress Russian air operations at their home bases, in the Kola Peninsula and the Leningrad district. The second story is about the Flamingo missile. The same Ukrainian company that made the FP-1 Firepoint also developed a cruise missile called the FP-5 Flamingo. And this missile is a monster. It has a range of 3,000 kilometers and a 1,150-kilogram warhead. For comparison, the Taurus has 480 kilograms. The Flamingo is more than double that. It uses a commercial turbofan engine, the same type used in training jets. And Firepoint claims it can produce 30 missiles per month, scaling up to 2,500 per year. Compare that to European production of sophisticated missiles. It's much slower. Flamingo's philosophy is different. They prefer quantity over complexity. Instead of making a few super sophisticated missiles, make a lot of simple but effective missiles. And that's exactly one of the lessons that Sweden is taking seriously. The lessons learned in Ukraine are valuable, and Sweden is learning from them. The country is aiming not only at the Taurus, but also at long-term European projects. One of them is the English Language Skills Assessment Program. It's an initiative led by France with European allies to develop cruise missiles with a range between 1,000 and 1,400 kilometers. The idea is European mass production, not relying only on the United States or single suppliers. English language skills assessment is not ready yet, but when it is, it will give Sweden more options. And the more options, the more flexibility. Tactical flexibility. Now, there's another factor that has become a nightmare for Putin. Geography. Take a look. The Baltic Sea used to be a contested zone. There were NATO countries on one side and Russia on the other. But now, with Finland and Sweden in NATO, the Baltic has become what some analysts call NATO's lake. It is nearly surrounded by alliance members, which changes everything for Russia. Before, Russia could move forces and ships through the Baltic with relative freedom. Now, every movement is closely monitored by multiple NATO countries, all with advanced surveillance capabilities. There's more. The Swedish missiles won't operate alone. They will be integrated with NATO forces. Sweden can deploy missiles in Finland, in the Baltic countries, at multiple locations. This multiplies the angles of attack against Russian targets. Putin can't defend all sides at the same time. That's the new reality. In addition, Sweden is dedicating 1.5% of its gross domestic product just to modernize military facilities and civilian infrastructure. It's not just about buying missiles. It's about preparing the whole country. Reinforced bunkers, dispersed logistics, trained population. And there's a concept behind all of this: total defense. The idea is for Sweden to become a strategic rear base for NATO operations in the Baltic and the far north. A country capable of absorbing an attack and continuing to fight. A country capable of projecting power. That's not the kind of stance you adopt overnight. It's a profound transformation. And Putin is watching this happen in real time. Sweden has become exactly what Putin tried to stop. For years, Putin used the narrative that NATO expansion threatened Russia. He invaded Ukraine under the pretext of preventing Ukraine from joining NATO. But the result? NATO became stronger. Finland and Sweden joined, and NATO's border with Russia more than doubled. And now, countries that were never a threat are arming themselves with systems capable of reaching the heart of Russia. Putin created the monster he so feared, and now that monster is arming itself with missiles that can reach his heart. The main message here is simple. In the modern world, neutrality doesn't protect you. Geography is not a defense. And when you decide to threaten your neighbors, they arm themselves to the teeth. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you think Sweden's decision to abandon 200 years of neutrality was the right choice? Or should it have remained neutral, even with the war in Ukraine? Leave in the comments what you think. And if you liked this content, share it with someone who is also interested in geopolitics. Subscribe to the channel for more analyses like this. See you in the next video.